Three of Glacier National Park's most experienced rescue specialists went out for a routine mission but vanished without a trace, despite decades of combined wilderness expertise and flawless safety records. When 200 searchers found nothing, the case went cold. 5 years later, a trail crew made a discovery less than half a mile from the original search area that would expose a chilling reality no one saw coming. Sarah Chen filled her thermos with coffee from the same red ceramic mug she had used every morning for 7 years, the one Emma had decorated with hand-painted wildflowers during a school art project. The kitchen radio played NPR's Morning Edition at low volume while she reviewed the day's equipment manifest on laminated cards clipped to a weatherproof binder. Her Motorola XTN 446 radio sat charging on the counter beside her truck keys, which hung from the brass hook Mark had installed near the garage door during their brief romantic relationship 3 years earlier, before they had decided friendship served them better than romance. Emma shuffled into the kitchen, wearing mismatched socks and her favorite oversized sweatshirt, dark hair still tangled from sleep. She poured cereal into a bowl without speaking, a 12-year-old's practiced morning routine that required no parental supervision. Mother and daughter had developed their own wordless choreography over the years since Emma's father had left for a job in Seattle and never returned. Sarah packed energy bars and electrolyte packets into her day pack while Emma ate, both of them comfortable with the silence that came from complete understanding. "Equipment test today," Sarah said, checking the weather application on her BlackBerry Curve. "Should be back by 6:30. Mrs. Patterson will drive you to soccer practice if I'm running late." Emma nodded, spooning cereal with one hand while flipping through a well-worn copy of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The bookmark had been fashioned from a strip of orange surveyor's tape, a gift from one of Sarah's rescue operations that had become Emma's treasured reading companion. At exactly 7:15, Sarah's truck pulled into the Glacier National Park employee parking area. Mark Rodriguez was already there, organizing climbing gear in the bed of his Ford Ranger with the methodical precision that had kept him alive through countless avalanche rescues. His equipment layout followed the same pattern every time: ropes coiled clockwise, carabiners sorted by gate type, helmet positioned at the exact center of his pack. The ritual had saved his life twice when muscle memory guided him through whiteout conditions where conscious thought would have failed. Dr. James Hartwell arrived in his Honda Pilot at 7:28, medical bag secured in the passenger seat beside a thermos of black coffee and a paper bag containing 2 whole wheat bagels with cream cheese. His wife Carol had packed his lunch the same way for 6 years of volunteer rescue work, always including handwritten notes that he tucked into his shirt pocket but never showed his colleagues. Today's note read simply, "Be careful out there, love you," in Carol's precise handwriting, the pen pressure slightly heavier on the word careful. The 3 specialists gathered around Mark's tailgate for their standard pre-mission briefing. Sarah spread topographical maps across the metal surface, securing corners with climbing nuts to prevent wind displacement. The test route would take them along the established trail system to Overlook Point, where they would verify the functionality of new emergency beacon technology that could potentially save lives in future rescue operations. "Weather window looks perfect," Mark reported, consulting his Kestrel 3000 handheld weather station. "Visibility unlimited, winds calm, temperature rising to 45 degrees by mid-afternoon. Storm system moving in from the northwest, but not expected to reach our area until well after dark." James reviewed the emergency medical protocols while Sarah programmed GPS waypoints into 3 separate devices. Each team member carried identical Garmin eTrex Vista HCX units loaded with detailed park topography, plus backup paper maps in waterproof cases. Communication equipment included VHF radios set to the Park Service emergency frequency, plus Sarah's satellite communicator for areas beyond radio range. They departed the trailhead at 8:37 a.m., hiking in single file with Mark leading, Sarah in the middle position for optimal radio relay, and James following as sweep to ensure no equipment was dropped or forgotten. Their boots left distinct tread patterns in patches of remaining snow, evidence that would later help searchers reconstruct their intended route. The morning air carried the clean scent of pine needles and snowmelt, punctuated by the distant calls of Clark's Nutcrackers announcing their presence to the wilderness. At 4:17 p.m., Sarah transmitted their scheduled check-in from Overlook Point. Her voice came through clearly on the Park Service radio system. "Base, this is Chen. Team at Overlook Point. All equipment functioning normally. Weather clear, visibility unlimited. Estimated return time 1800 hours. Chen out." The transmission lasted 12 seconds and would be the last confirmed communication from any of the three specialists. Ranger Station Operator Janet Morrison marked the 1800 hours checkpoint on her duty log and continued monitoring radio traffic from three other rescue operations running simultaneously across the park system. By 1830, she began watching for Sarah's return transmission. By 1845, concern crept into her routine. By 1900 hours, she was reaching for the emergency protocol binder that outlined procedures for overdue rescue teams. "All units, this is base," Morrison transmitted at 1907. "Be advised, we have an overdue rescue team. Last contact, Overlook Point, at 1617 hours. Units Chen, Rodriguez, and Hartwell, please respond immediately." Silence filled the radio spectrum, except for the soft hiss of static. Morrison followed escalation protocols developed through years of wilderness emergency management. First call went to Park Superintendent Dennis Walsh at 1912 hours. Second call activated the duty SR coordinator at 1915. Third call mobilized the first response team at 1923, exactly 6 minutes after the official overdue classification. Ranger Michael Kowalski and Deputy Superintendent Robert Walsh reached the Trailhead parking area at 1951 hours. Their headlights illuminating Sarah's blue Toyota Tacoma, sitting exactly where she had left it, 11 hours earlier. The vehicle was locked, but something about its positioning troubled Kowalski immediately. Sarah always backed into parking spaces for quick emergency departures, yet the truck faced forward. The gear visible through the rear window appeared disorganized, unlike Sarah's typically meticulous equipment management. Walsh circled the vehicle with a Streamlight Stinger flashlight, documenting details that would later gain significance. Driver's door locked, no visible signs of forced entry. Rear window revealed scattered equipment, including 2 sleeping bags, a camp stove, and extra clothing that should have been packed for the mission. Most troubling was the presence of Sarah's backup satellite communicator, a bright orange ACR Rescue Link device that she carried on every wilderness operation, but which now sat unused on the rear seat. "This isn't right," Kowalski said, pressing his face against the passenger window. "Sarah never leaves comm equipment behind. And look at the gear arrangement. This isn't how she packs." Walsh keyed his radio. "Base, this is Deputy Walsh at the Overlook Point Trailhead. Confirm overdue team vehicle located and secured. Requesting immediate SAR activation. Full complement. Weather conditions deteriorating rapidly. Recommend night operations with thermal imaging capability." At 2100 hours, the first SR teams assembled at the command post established in the parking area. Search and Rescue Coordinator Linda Hayes arrived in the mobile command unit, a converted recreational vehicle equipped with radio relay equipment and detailed topographical displays. Within 30 minutes, she had organized 27 volunteers into grid search patterns covering a 4-square-mile area around the known route. Hayes deployed teams with military precision developed through 15 years of wilderness emergency management. Team Alpha took the main trail with tracking dogs. Team Bravo split off to cover alternate routes. Team Charlie handled high-elevation reconnaissance using night vision equipment. Each team carried GPS units programmed with search boundaries and reporting intervals of 30 minutes. The first significant discovery came at 23:42 hours when Team Alpha located boot prints matching the tread patterns documented at the trailhead. The tracks followed the established trail for approximately 2 miles before diverging toward terrain not included in the original mission plan. More troubling, the prints suggested the team had been moving rapidly, inconsistent with routine equipment testing procedures. Team Bravo found additional evidence at elevation 8,200 feet, a broken Timex Ironman wristwatch that James Hartwell's wife later identified as his regular hiking timepiece. The watch face was cracked, but the digital display remained functional, frozen at 23:43 hours. The location was more than half a mile from any established trail, deep in terrain that experienced rescue specialists would never have entered without specific emergency justification. By dawn, search operations had expanded to include 2 helicopters equipped with thermal imaging systems and a K-9 unit from the Montana State Police. The weather had deteriorated, as Mark's forecast predicted, bringing snow squalls and visibility restrictions that grounded aircraft after only 3 hours of operation. Ground teams continued working despite conditions that made progress slow and dangerous. Emma Chen sat at her kitchen table, homework forgotten, while neighbors she barely knew filled her house with casseroles and worried whispers. Mrs. Patterson had driven her home from soccer practice the night before when Sarah failed to appear, explaining with carefully chosen words that Mom was helping with an emergency and might be delayed. Now, as morning stretched toward afternoon without word, the careful explanations gave way to police detectives asking questions about her mother's routine and state of mind. The Chen house became an unofficial family assistance center as Sarah's sister Jennifer drove up from Billings, arriving with a carload of relatives and the grim efficiency that comes from experience with family crises. Jennifer organized meal schedules and coordinated with school officials while fielding phone calls from reporters who had somehow obtained the family's unlisted number. She answered each call with the same practiced response: "The family appreciates your concern, but requests privacy during this difficult time." Emma's bedroom became her sanctuary, filled with items that connected her to her missing mother. Sarah's spare hiking boots sat by the closet door where Emma had placed them the previous evening, as if their presence could summon their owner home. The girl methodically arranged and rearranged her mother's wilderness training certificates, reading each achievement citation as if the words contained hidden messages about Sarah's fate. Lisa Kowalski, Mark's fiancée, transformed their shared apartment into a command center for family coordination efforts. She converted their dining room table into a communication hub with multiple phone lines, detailed park maps, and a logbook tracking every piece of information received from official sources. Her background as a 911 dispatcher provided organizational skills that proved invaluable for managing the flood of tips, offers of assistance, and media inquiries. Mark's climbing gear remained exactly where he had left it in their bedroom, each piece of equipment positioned according to his meticulous organization system. Lisa found herself unable to disturb even the smallest carabiner, as if maintaining his precise arrangements could somehow maintain the connection to his safe return. Friends offered to help pack away reminders, but she refused all assistance, insisting that Mark would want his equipment ready for immediate use upon his return. The Hartwell family responded to crisis through fragments rather than unity. Carol Hartwell stationed herself at the search command post, maintaining constant vigilance with coffee from thermos bottles and questions that revealed her growing suspicion of official explanations. Their eldest son Michael drove in from college and immediately joined search teams, channeling his anxiety into physical action. Younger son David refused to leave his high school classes, insisting that maintaining normal routine was the only acceptable response to an abnormal situation. Search operations expanded beyond professional capabilities as volunteer groups organized independently of official coordination. The Glacier County Snowmobile Association provided machines for high-elevation reconnaissance. Local climbing clubs contributed technical expertise for cliff and crevasse searches. Amateur radio operators established communication networks extending search coordination beyond Park Service radio range. Flathead Valley Community Church became the unofficial volunteer coordination center, with Pastor Williams organizing meal preparation for search teams and managing the influx of out-of-state volunteers who arrived with specialized equipment and determination. The church fellowship hall transformed into a staging area for donated supplies, sleeping bags, camp stoves, batteries, and energy food that kept searchers functional during extended operations. Media attention intensified as the story gained regional and national coverage. CNN sent a correspondent who established a remote broadcast position at the park entrance, providing hourly updates that often contained more speculation than verified information. Local television stations competed for exclusive family interviews, creating additional stress for relatives already overwhelmed by the crisis. Search teams discovered additional evidence on the fourth day. Pages from what appeared to be James Hartwell's wilderness journal, found near the tree-line at elevation 9,100 feet. The waterlogged paper contained barely legible entries documenting weather observations and wildlife sightings from their final day. The last readable entry, dated March 15, mentioned unusual activity in restricted areas, but provided no additional details due to water damage. By the 6th day, search operations had covered 37 square miles with ground teams, helicopters, and specialized technical rescue units. The official search effort involved over 200 volunteers, 12 K-9 teams, and equipment worth more than $500,000. Despite the massive resource commitment, searchers had found only scattered traces, boot prints, the broken watch, and journal fragments that raised more questions than they answered. The first anniversary brought reporters back to Glacier National Park, seeking updated statements from families who had learned to recognize the sound of news vans in their driveways. Emma Chen, now 13, had developed the ability to spot media vehicles 3 blocks away and could disappear into neighbors' backyards with practiced efficiency. She had grown 4 inches since her mother's disappearance, requiring new clothes that Jennifer purchased without consulting Emma's preferences, creating a wardrobe that felt foreign and temporary. Sarah's bedroom remained untouched, except for dust accumulation and the gradual fading of colors in curtains that no longer served their purpose. Emma entered the room only on significant dates: birthdays, Christmas morning, and the anniversary of her mother's last radio transmission. She would sit on the bed for exactly 10 minutes, setting her cell phone timer to prevent longer stays that might attract Jennifer's concerned attention. Lisa Kowalski maintained Mark's apartment exactly as he had left it, down to the coffee mug unwashed in the sink and climbing magazines folded open to articles he would never finish reading. She renewed the lease each year despite financial strain, working double shifts as a dispatcher to afford rent on an apartment she shared with memories and hope. Friends suggested selling Mark's climbing equipment, but she insisted the gear represented necessary preparation for his eventual return. The Hartwell family fragmented along predictable lines of grief psychology. Carol had exhausted the family's savings on private investigators, psychics, and reward funds that produced dozens of false leads, but no genuine progress. She attended missing persons support groups in 3 different counties, seeking patterns that might explain her husband's disappearance. Michael graduated college and joined the Montana State Police, choosing a career that would provide investigative resources for pursuing his father's case. David changed his major to forestry and refused to discuss his father with anyone, including family members. Detective Raymond Martinez inherited the case when the original lead investigator retired, bringing fresh perspective to evidence that had been examined countless times without yielding new insights. Martinez reviewed witness statements, physical evidence, and search operation records with the methodical attention of someone who understood that cold cases often required years of patient analysis before revealing their secrets. The official case file occupied 4 storage boxes in the Montana State Police Evidence Warehouse, organized according to protocols that ensured preservation while acknowledging the reality of limited investigative resources. Martinez visited the file quarterly, looking for evidence that might gain significance through technological advancement or new analytical techniques. Each review produced the same conclusion: 3 experienced professionals had vanished without logical explanation. Technological improvements offered periodic false hope. Enhanced satellite imagery became available for the search area, revealing terrain details invisible in earlier analysis. Ground-penetrating radar was deployed at locations where evidence had been discovered, producing subsurface maps that showed natural rock formations but no human remains. DNA analysis techniques advanced to the point where severely degraded biological samples could yield identification, but searchers had found no such samples to analyze. The families maintained different relationships with hope. Emma Chen learned to navigate holidays and birthdays by creating private rituals that honored her mother's memory while acknowledging the reality of permanent absence. She excelled academically, earning grades that would have made Sarah proud, but avoided outdoor activities that might trigger unwanted memories of wilderness rescue operations. Lisa Kowalski's hope took the form of preparation for Mark's return. She maintained his equipment in perfect condition, updated his climbing permits annually, and kept detailed records of route conditions that he would want to review. Her apartment became a shrine disguised as practical readiness, with every object positioned to support the fantasy of resumed normal life. Tourist traffic through Glacier National Park gradually returned to normal levels as media attention faded and the disappearance became historical rather than immediate news. Visitors occasionally asked park rangers about the missing rescue team, but most rangers had not worked at the park during the original incident and could provide only general information from official summaries. The case officially transitioned to inactive status after 3 years, though families were assured that new evidence would trigger immediate reactivation of investigative efforts. This bureaucratic change reflected resource realities rather than abandonment of hope, but families interpreted the designation as official acknowledgement that their loved ones would never be found. Trail maintenance supervisor Kevin Walsh discovered the depression while clearing deadfall from the lower elevation service roads that provided emergency vehicle access to remote areas of the park. His crew had been working systematically through storm damage from the previous winter, removing fallen trees and repairing erosion damage with the methodical efficiency of 15-year veterans who understood that proper trail maintenance prevented emergency situations. The depression measured approximately 8 feet by 12 feet, partially concealed by 5 years of natural vegetation growth and accumulated forest debris. What caught Walsh's attention was the unnatural uniformity of the depression's edges and the absence of large trees within its boundaries, suggesting deliberate excavation rather than natural erosion or animal activity. Walsh's first thought was illegal camping, a persistent problem in areas adjacent to designated campgrounds, where visitors attempted to avoid permit fees and regulation compliance. His crew had encountered dozens of unauthorized sites over the years, typically marked by fire rings, scattered trash, and vegetation damage from improper waste disposal. This site looked different, too organized for casual camping, too isolated for convenient access. Initial examination revealed scattered bone fragments, partially concealed beneath fallen leaves and pine needles. Walsh immediately recognized the significance and established a secure perimeter while contacting park headquarters through his handheld radio. His 17 years of wilderness experience had exposed him to numerous animal remains, but the size and characteristics of these fragments suggested human origin. Base, this is Maintenance 7, Walsh transmitted at 11:43 a.m. I need immediate supervisor response at my location. Coordinates to follow. Possible human remains discovered. Establishing security perimeter and suspending work operations until investigation complete. Park Superintendent Martinez arrived within 37 minutes, accompanied by Detective Raymond Martinez and the park's chief naturalist, Dr. Patricia Coleman. The response team approached the site with evidence preservation protocols that reflected lessons learned from hundreds of crime scene investigations. Photography preceded any physical examination, documenting the scene from multiple angles before human activity could alter natural arrangements. Dr. Coleman's biological expertise proved immediately valuable for preliminary assessment of the remains. The scattered fragments included portions of what appeared to be human long bones, possibly femur and tibia sections, along with smaller fragments that could represent ribs or other skeletal elements. More significantly, the remains were accompanied by artificial materials, synthetic fabric, metal hardware, and plastic components that suggested personal equipment rather than natural deposition. Detective Martinez photographed each item in place before collection, maintaining chain of custody documentation that would support laboratory analysis and potential legal proceedings. The evidence included a partially corroded metal object that appeared to be an engraved knife handle, fragments of what might have been a digital watch, and pieces of a bound notebook with pages too deteriorated for immediate readability. The location was less than half a mile from the area where search operations had focused most intensively during the original investigation. The proximity raised immediate questions about search effectiveness and evidence preservation. But Dr. Coleman noted that 5 years of seasonal vegetation growth could easily conceal a site this size from overhead observation and casual ground examination. Weather conditions favored detailed investigation. Clear skies and calm winds allowed for extended photography and measurement sessions. Temperature held steady at 58 degrees Fahrenheit, optimal for preservation of newly exposed evidence. Martinez documented the precise GPS coordinates: 48.738 degrees north, 113.619 degrees west, elevation 7,412 feet. Initial field examinations suggested the remains had been in place for an extended period, possibly matching the time frame of the missing rescue team's disappearance. Dr. Coleman noted evidence of animal scavenging and weather exposure consistent with several years of natural decomposition processes. However, the preservation of synthetic materials and metal objects indicated protective conditions that might have preserved crucial identification evidence. The discovery triggered immediate notification protocols that brought additional resources to the scene within hours. The State Crime Lab dispatched a forensic anthropologist and evidence collection team. The FBI field office in Billings assigned an agent experienced in missing persons cases. The Park Service activated emergency protocols that secured the area and managed media attention that began within 6 hours of the initial discovery. Family notification followed careful protocols designed to prevent false hope while acknowledging the possibility of closure. Emma Chen received the news at school, delivered by Jennifer and a victim services specialist who explained that remains had been found, but identification would require laboratory analysis. Lisa Kowalski was contacted at work by Detective Martinez, who emphasized that preliminary examination suggested possible connection to the missing rescue team case, but warned against premature conclusions. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, forensic anthropologist from the Montana State Crime Laboratory, arrived at the site with portable X-ray equipment and specialized collection tools designed for archaeological evidence recovery. Her 23 years of experience with skeletal remains analysis had taught her to approach preliminary findings with scientific skepticism while remaining alert for details that could provide definitive identification. The bone fragments showed characteristics inconsistent with exposure-death hypotheses that had formed the foundation of original investigative theories. Multiple long bone sections displayed impact damage that Mitchell recognized immediately as ballistic trauma. The fracture patterns, radiating from circular entry points with characteristic beveling, indicated high-velocity projectile impacts rather than environmental damage or animal activity. "These are gunshot wounds," Mitchell informed Detective Martinez during the initial examination. "Minimum of 3 separate impacts visible on the recovered femur sections alone. The entrance characteristics and internal fracturing patterns are consistent with rifle ammunition, probably .30-06 or similar caliber. Laboratory analysis of the metal fragments revealed additional crucial evidence. The engraved knife handle belonged to a custom hunting knife manufactured by Buck Knives with personalized inscription reading, M. Rodriguez, always prepared." Lisa Kowalski confirmed the inscription matched a gift she had purchased for Mark's birthday 2 years before his disappearance, providing the first definitive link between the remains and the missing rescue team. Digital watch components, though severely corroded, retained enough circuitry for data recovery specialists at the FBI Forensic Laboratory. Using specialized techniques developed for terrorist investigation equipment analysis, technicians extracted partial memory contents that included timestamp data and GPS coordinates. The final recorded position matched the discovery site location within 20-meter accuracy, confirming that Dr. Hartwell had been at this location when his watch stopped functioning. The notebook fragments required extraordinary preservation efforts due to advanced decomposition and water damage. Conservationists at the Smithsonian Institution's Preservation Laboratory used freeze-drying and chemical stabilization to separate individual pages without destroying illegible text. Infrared photography revealed previously invisible ink traces that contained crucial information about the team's final hours. One partially preserved entry, dated March 15th and timed at 18:32 hours, contained the notation, "Poaching evidence discovered. Horn caches and trap locations documented. GPS coordinates logged for law enforcement follow-up." The entry continued with GPS coordinates that mapped to locations within restricted park boundaries where unauthorized hunting would constitute federal crimes. Advanced acoustic analysis of the archived owl monitoring station recordings provided the most compelling evidence for reconstructing the timeline of events. Dr. James Patterson, audio forensics specialist from the University of Montana, applied digital filtering techniques to isolate human-generated sounds from natural background noise recorded during the night of March 15th. The recordings revealed a sequence of 5 distinct gunshots occurring at 23:43 hours, 37 minutes, and 22 seconds Mountain Standard Time. Audio analysis identified the acoustic signature as consistent with a Remington Model 870 12-gauge shotgun firing standard buckshot loads. The shots occurred at approximately 8-second intervals, suggesting deliberate rather than defensive fire. Background audio captured additional significant details. Male voices were audible during the 15 minutes preceding the gunshots, though individual words remained unintelligible due to distance and wind noise. Vehicle engine sounds suggested the presence of motorized transportation, inconsistent with the team's documented hiking-only mission plan. GPS data analysis revealed the most damaging evidence against original accident theories. Satellite positioning records from Sarah Chen's vehicle showed the truck had been moved from its original parking position sometime between 2100 and 2300 hours on March 15, then returned to approximately the same location before dawn on March 16. The vehicle had traveled an estimated 43 miles during this period, following service roads that provided access to remote areas where poaching activities could occur undetected. Financial forensics investigation uncovered the motive behind the murders. Deputy Superintendent Robert Walsh's bank records showed regular cash deposits ranging from $5,000 to $15,000, disguised as consulting fees from wildlife management companies that existed only on paper. The deposits coincided with documented increases in illegal trophy hunting activities within park boundaries. Customs enforcement analysis revealed that bighorn sheephorn and mountain goat horn, specimens worth an estimated $200,000, had been exported from Montana during the previous 3 years using fraudulent research permits signed by Walsh. The horns were shipped to collectors in Europe and Asia, where trophy hunting remains legal but extremely expensive, creating black market demand for illegally obtained specimens. The investigation reconstructed Walsh's operation with devastating precision. He had identified remote areas within park boundaries where trophy animals could be hunted without detection. Poachers paid premium fees for access and protection, trusting Walsh's position to prevent prosecution. The operation generated more than $400,000 annually, money that Walsh laundered through shell companies and false consulting contracts. Sarah Chen's team had discovered physical evidence of this operation during their routine equipment test. Horn caches, trap locations, and vehicle tracks provided proof that someone with official access was facilitating illegal activities. Their radio report, at 16:17 hours, had identified specific GPS coordinates where evidence could be found, triggering Walsh's decision to eliminate witnesses who could destroy his operation and career. The timeline became clear through integrated evidence analysis. Walsh had contacted the team after their final radio transmission, claiming emergency rescue operations required their immediate assistance. He led them to the remote location where their remains were eventually found, using his authority and their trust to overcome normal safety protocols. The acoustic evidence confirmed that executions occurred shortly before midnight, providing Walsh sufficient time to conceal evidence and establish alibis. Ballistics analysis of fragments recovered from the bone remains matched Walsh's service weapon, a Remington 870 shotgun issued by the Park Service for wildlife management duties. Microscopic comparison of pellet fragments extracted from bone tissue showed tool marks identical to those produced by Walsh's weapon barrel. The evidence provided scientific certainty that Walsh's weapon had caused the fatal injuries. Robert Walsh was arrested at his home on November 7, 2013, at 6:15 a.m. Mountain Standard Time by FBI agents and Montana State Police detectives executing federal warrants for murder and conspiracy charges. The arrest occurred without incident, though Walsh's wife Laura fainted when agents explained the charges and presented evidence summaries that detailed the scope of his criminal activities. The trial began 8 months later in federal district court in Billings, with prosecutors presenting forensic evidence that linked Walsh to the murders through ballistics, financial records, and acoustic analysis. Defense attorneys argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that other individuals could have committed the crimes, but the cumulative weight of scientific analysis proved overwhelming for jury deliberations. Expert testimony consumed 3 weeks of trial proceedings. Dr. Mitchell explained the ballistic trauma evidence with anatomical precision that left no doubt about the cause of death. Dr. Patterson's acoustic analysis demonstrated the timeline and weapon characteristics with scientific certainty. Financial forensics specialist documented the money laundering operation that provided motive for eliminating witnesses who threatened Walsh's criminal enterprise. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. 3 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to violate wildlife protection laws, money laundering, and abuse of federal authority. Judge Patricia Henderson sentenced Walsh to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, describing his crimes as a betrayal of public trust that resulted in the execution of 3 dedicated public servants. Emma Chen, now 18 and preparing for college, attended the sentencing hearing with Jennifer and extended family members who had supported her through 5 years of uncertainty. She chose not to provide a victim impact statement, explaining later that words could not adequately express the damage caused by losing her mother, and then learning that the loss resulted from deliberate murder rather than wilderness accident. Lisa Kowalski spoke for 10 minutes during victim impact proceedings, addressing Walsh directly while describing the psychological damage caused by years of false hope and misplaced trust in official investigations. She had sold Mark's climbing equipment the previous year and used the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund for wilderness safety education, transforming his memory into a resource for preventing future tragedies. Carol Hartwell's victim impact statement lasted 37 minutes and required 3 recesses when her emotional intensity overwhelmed her ability to continue speaking. She detailed the family fragmentation that resulted from her husband's murder, including her son David's ongoing refusal to discuss the case, and Michael's decision to relocate to another state where reminders of his father's death would not dominate daily life. Glacier National Park implemented comprehensive oversight reforms designed to prevent similar corruption in the future. New protocols required dual authorization for all wildlife management decisions, independent auditing of equipment and supply expenditures, and mandatory rotation of personnel through sensitive positions. The reforms addressed systemic weaknesses that had allowed Walsh to operate without detection for several years. The park established memorial markers at the trailhead where the 3 rescue specialists began their final mission. The bronze plaques commemorate their service while providing safety information for visitors who might encounter suspicious activities in wilderness areas. Park rangers receive enhanced training for recognizing and reporting signs of illegal activities, with emphasis on protecting civilian witnesses who provide crucial information. The case remains open for additional prosecutions related to Walsh's accomplices and customers, though investigators acknowledge that identifying participants in the illegal hunting operation may prove impossible due to the sophisticated methods Walsh used to conceal identities and activities. Financial records suggest at least 12 individuals paid for illegal hunting access, but most transactions were conducted through cash payments that left no traceable evidence. Questions persist about whether Walsh murdered other witnesses who discovered his operation during the years he managed illegal activities within park boundaries. The FBI has reopened investigations into 6 additional missing persons cases involving individuals who disappeared in areas where Walsh had administrative responsibility, though none have yielded sufficient evidence for additional prosecutions. The families found different paths toward acceptance of the truth they had waited 5 years to discover. Emma Chen completed her mother's unfinished college degree application and enrolled in forestry school, choosing a career that would continue Sarah's commitment to wilderness protection. Lisa Kowalski relocated to Colorado and married a park ranger who understood the unique challenges of relationships threatened by dangerous work in remote locations. The Hartwell family never fully recovered from the revelation that trusted authority had betrayed their loved one. Carol continues attending support groups for families of murder victims, finding community among others who share the experience of sudden violent loss. Michael left law enforcement and works as a private investigator specializing in missing persons cases, applying skills learned during his father's investigation to help other families find answers. The mountains of Glacier National Park continue to challenge visitors with their beauty and danger, but the wilderness now carries the knowledge that human evil can be as deadly as natural forces. The acoustic monitoring stations that captured evidence of the murders continue recording the sounds of night, preserving audio documentation that might someday provide answers to questions not yet asked.